Hello class 7. Today we will study chapter number 7, air and atmosphere. Okay. Today we will talk about the composition of air and the uses of different gases that makes up the atmosphere. Okay. So without wasting time, I just want to tell you what air is. So air is a mixture of gases. So air is a mixture of different gases, and it is mainly composed of nitrogen and oxygen. So composition of gases, we'll talk about it a little bit later. So, but first let me tell you what is atmosphere, okay? Atmosphere is the blanket of air that surrounds the earth. And the atmosphere filters. Now what is the function of the atmosphere? Why is there atmosphere? So atmosphere filters the sunlight reaching the earth. It affects the climate, and it contains different gases which are essential for life. So air is a mixture of different gases, whereas atmosphere is the blanket of air that surrounds the earth. Now we come to the composition of air. Air is composed of many different gases because air is a mixture of different gases. Some of them are useful, some of them are not. Some of we use it, some of them we do not. So anyway, nitrogen is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere. Almost around 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. Then comes oxygen. Very, very important for us, for life. We have 21% of oxygen in the atmosphere. Now, next comes carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is just 0.03% of atmosphere is carbon dioxide, which is very, very essential. This 0.03% of carbon dioxide is very, very important for the life of plants, for the manufacture of food. So we'll talk about the uses of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide a little bit later. Then comes, after carbon dioxide, then comes noble gases. 0.09%, okay, are noble gases, mainly argon. So we know helium, neon, xenon, radon, and all these things, these gases are noble gases. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. Then comes water vapor. That is variable. It changes from place to place, like in Amazon. A lot of moisture is present because of the large percent of land is covered with forest. So because of transpiration, we have a lot of moisture. But in the desert, let's say Sahara Desert, Thar Desert, whatever. So in the desert, the air is very, very dry. So we have very less water vapor. So it depends. What also depends are the dust particles and the amount of polluting gases. So the composition of air, as we know, is not fixed anyway. Okay, it depends upon place to place. So it varies from place to place and with altitude also. The air in the mountains is very, very thin. Very less oxygen is found as you go higher and higher and higher. Whereas down in the plains, we have a lot of oxygen. Isn't it? So as you go higher and higher with the altitude, what changes? The air becomes thinner and thinner and thinner, and the amount of oxygen also becomes less. That's why the mountaineers, they carry oxygen cylinders, because as you go higher and higher, the air becomes thinner and thinner, so there will be less amount of oxygen for you to breathe. So the composition also varies at different periods of time. For example, during the dry season, the air becomes humid. During the rainy season, the air becomes humid. Means a lot of moisture, water vapor is present. And again, during the winters again, the air becomes dry. That's why our skin becomes dry. We use a lot of Vaseline and moisturizers and all. Why? Because the air is very, very dry, which affects our skin too. Further, the amount of impurities in air, such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and other pollutants, also varies from place to place. Okay, like the air is in Kalimpong is comparatively much cleaner than the air that we find in the plains or in the cities. All right. So now that was the composition of air. We have the maximum amount is nitrogen, and secondly we have, in the second place we have oxygen, 78% of nitrogen and just 21% of oxygen, and the rest are carbon dioxide, noble gases, water vapor, pollutants and other gases present. So now we come to the uses of nitrogen. Okay. Now nitrogen is very important for the plants. We have learned in biology that carbon dioxide is very important for the plants for the manufacture of food. Not only carbon dioxide, now we will know that nitrogen is also very important for the manufacture of proteins in the plants. Okay, so nitrogen is the main constituent of proteins. Plants directly or indirectly use nitrogen from the air to make proteins, which is very important for our muscle development and the well maintenance of the body, for the plants as well as for animals. So in the manufacture of ammonia is a gas made up of nitrogen and hydrogen, and the formula we know it is NH3. So nitrogen is used in the manufacture of ammonia in the process called Haber's process. We do it in detail in class 10. Please don't worry. The third important use of nitrogen is the manufacture of fertilizers. Okay, like urea, potassium nitrate, ammonium phosphate, ammonium sulfate. These are some of the fertilizers in which nitrogen is, the constituent nitrogen is plays a very important role. In the manufacture of explosive, TNT we call it, trinitrotoluene. Okay, so the most of the chemical explosives contain nitrogen. Not only TNT, but most of the explosive contains nitrogen. So nitrogen is a very important ingredient for the manufacture of trinitrotoluene, which is and nitroglycerine. Not only TNT, but also nitroglycerine. Next is in the food industry. Okay, now it is used in the packaging, like we have a packet of chips. Okay, which is where it is tightly packed with air. Inside there is not, it's not air inside, it is nitrogen. Why? If you put air inside the packets, what happens is oxygen is present, it will oxidize the food and the food gets spoiled. Or maybe moisture might be present inside, which might spoil the food inside the packet. So we use nitrogen, okay, which keeps the food fresh, any eatable inside the can or inside the packet fresh. So because of the inert nature, because nitrogen is quite inert, is not very reactive gas. So the nitrogen is used for packaging. The containers used for storing foodstuffs are flushed with nitrogen to remove oxygen before they are sealed. The absence of oxygen does not allow the growth of bacteria. These foodstuffs remain fresh for a long time if we have nitrogen filling the packet of chips. So whenever you open the packet of chips and the air comes out, that is not air, that is nitrogen gas, which keeps the food fresh inside the can or inside the packet. Please remember that. It is also used in the hospitals, like liquid nitrogen. Nitrogen gas liquefies at a very low temperature. Okay, and this liquid is used as a refrigerant. It can be used to preserve the blood and the tissues of humans. So it can be used as a refrigerant. So liquid nitrogen are used in the hospitals for storing and preserving blood and tissues. Now next we come to is the next abundant gas in the atmosphere, that is oxygen. We have 21% of oxygen in the atmosphere. So we all know that oxygen is very important for respiration, for plants, in plants as well as in animals. So respiration, oxygen is a life-supporting gas that is necessary for respiration. So in respiration, the living organisms take in oxygen, oxygen reacts with the food, and then energy is released. Like we have an equation, C6H12O6 plus oxygen produces carbon dioxide plus water vapor plus energy. Lot of energy, isn't it? So as we balance it, 6CO2, 6O2 and 6H2O. So this is the equation for the process called respiration, where the oxygen reacts with the food to produce carbon dioxide, water, and a lot of energy. And this energy is used for various activities in plants as well as in animals. Now, the oxygen cylinders, not only for respiration, so oxygen cylinders are used by the firefighters or the deep sea divers, the miners, etc. for respiration. So even the mountaineers, as I already told you, they carry oxygen cylinders in the absence of oxygen so that they can respire and keep the life process going. Next, burning. Burning is necessary. Oxygen is necessary for burning of fuels to produce heat as well as light. For example, carbon, koila, we call it carbon or charcoal. Carbon plus oxygen. Carbon burns in the presence of oxygen to produce the gas called carbon dioxide, CO2, plus it produces heat and light. It produces heat as well as light. So this is the process, the chemical equation that represents the process of burning. Carbon dioxide reacts with oxygen to produce carbon reacts with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and heat as well as light. Carbon dioxide is also used in medical purposes. You must be shocked. Why carbon dioxide? How in the medical purposes? So in oxygen, in hospitals, the oxygen-filled cylinders are used to give oxygen to patients suffering from respiratory problems. A mixture of 95% of oxygen and 5% of carbon dioxide, which is known as carbogen, is given to the patients to stimulate natural breathing. So we do not give pure oxygen to the patients. We mix 95% of oxygen and a little bit, 5% of carbon dioxide, and it's given to the patients for normal breathing. It is carbon dioxide is also used. Oxygen is also used in welding and cutting purposes. So medical purposes, in hospitals, oxygen is used for artificial breathing, and a gas called carbogen, mixture of 95% of oxygen and 5% of carbon dioxide, is given to the patients for normal breathing. And now we come to welding and cutting purposes. The mixture of hydrogen and oxygen, called oxyhydrogen flame. It's known as oxyhydrogen flame. It burns. Hydrogen, remember, it burns with a blue flame. Hydrogen, it burns with a blue flame, with a pop sound actually. But the mixture of hydrogen and oxygen also burns with a blue flame, and the temperature it produces is very, very high, almost around 2800 degrees Celsius. And this flame is used for cutting metals, for welding. Another mixture of gas with oxygen, like acetylene gas, or we call it oxyacetylene flame. Oxyacetylene flame also burns with a colorless flame, which is produced, gives a very, very high temperature, produces very, very high temperature, higher than oxyhydrogen flame, that is 3200 degrees Celsius. Oxyhydrogen flames gives you burns with a 2800 degrees Celsius, whereas oxyacetylene flame burns at to produce heat of around 3200 degrees Celsius, which is also used for welding and cutting metals. Okay. Now another use of oxygen, as we continue with the uses of oxygen, another use of oxygen is in the manufacture of chemicals. Yeah. So it is used in manufacture of nitric acid, it is used in the manufacture of sulfuric acid and various other chemicals in the chemical industry. And the last one is, it is used as a rocket propellant. So LOX, L-O-X, LOX, liquid oxygen is used. Liquid oxygen, like the LPG gas. The LPG cylinders we have, the red, the LPG cylinders or the gas that we burn at home for cooking food, LPG gas. It is, why is it, what's the full form of LPG gas? It is liquid petroleum gas. The liquid, petroleum gas is liquefied under very, very high pressure and it is stored inside the cylinders. Similarly, rocket fuels is nothing but liquid oxygen, we call it LOX. So oxygen gas is liquefied and it is kept in the cylinders and taken in the rockets and it's used as fuels. So these are some of the uses of oxygen. Now we talk about the renewal of oxygen. We'll talk about now the renewal of oxygen. How is oxygen renewed? Like all the animals are using oxygen all the time. That means a point should come where oxygen should be depleted from the atmosphere. We will not have any more oxygen left for us to breathe. But that's not the case. The oxygen gets renewed automatically in the atmosphere. How now? So air contains about 21% of oxygen by volume. We all know that. It is required for respiration by all living organisms, and during respiration, oxygen breaks down the food. The oxygen breaks down the food. C6H12O6 is glucose. This is glucose. C6H12O6 glucose is broken down by oxygen to give you carbon dioxide, water vapor and energy. So oxygen is also used up by burning fuels. That means every time we drive a car, we are using oxygen. Every time we cook food, we are using oxygen. So every time a fuel is being burnt means oxygen is being used up. Aquatic animals also take in carbon dioxide that is dissolved in water. Yet it has been observed that the amount of oxygen is almost constant in the atmosphere. Now how? This is because carbon dioxide released during respiration and burning of fuels is utilized by the green plants to produce food for photosynthesis and release oxygen in the air. So the other process called photosynthesis. CO2 plus H2O produces. Now this is the reaction for photosynthesis, the process used by the green plants to manufacture food. So carbon dioxide plus water gives you glucose, C6H12O6 plus oxygen is released. Okay, so while we balance it, so this oxygen here released during the process of photosynthesis by the green plants will make up for the loss of oxygen that we use for respiration and burning fuels. Okay, so green plants play a very important role in producing oxygen for us to breathe. So during respiration, we produce carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is used by the plants to manufacture food, and which produces oxygen for us to breathe. So there is exchange of gases between plants and then between animals. So this is called the oxygen cycle. So that is how the amount of oxygen is replenished in the atmosphere. So the maintain of oxygen and carbon dioxide is balanced this way. Now we come to the uses of carbon dioxide. The last portion of the day, we study the uses of carbon dioxide. Now you must have, during the summers, we take in cold drinks, carbonated drinks like Pepsi or Thumbs Up or 7 Up or Mountain Dew or whatever aerated drink. So the carbonated drinks, what happens is carbon dioxide under very high pressure is forced to dissolve in water, okay, for the manufacture of cold drinks. So actually in cold drinks we are drinking, why does it have a particular taste? Because of the burning taste. Why? Because it has carbon dioxide forced to dissolve in it. So therefore we have that taste of cold drinks in carbonated drinks. It is nothing but we are drinking carbon dioxide dissolved in water. We call it soda water as well. Next is as a refrigerant for preserving food. Now dry ice. Carbon dioxide, when if you decrease the temperature of carbon dioxide, it becomes solid. It becomes, we call it dry ice. We call it dry ice. So dry ice, solid carbon dioxide is very, very cold, and it is used as a refrigerant for preserving food items. Okay, so like if you use ice, the ice will melt. If you put ice if you use ice as a refrigerant, it will, to preserve our food, the food gets wet because it might dissolve. It might melt, not dissolve, it might melt and change into, ice changes into water, and then if it is heated, then it changes into gas. But it's not so in the case of carbon dioxide. If you use dry ice or solid carbon dioxide, it directly sublimes into gas. It will not turn into liquid carbon dioxide. So this is one of the best reason why we use dry ice or solid carbon dioxide to preserve food materials or as a refrigerant. We use it, carbon dioxide. The third use is we use carbon dioxide in the manufacture of urea, that is fertilizer. So it is used in the manufacture of urea, one of the most important fertilizer that we use, the nitrogenous fertilizer that we use, by the reaction between gaseous ammonia and carbon dioxide. So both the gases, ammonia and carbon dioxide, react to produce urea. Okay, remember. Next is role in photosynthesis. So we all know that green plants in the presence of sunlight use carbon dioxide in the air to prepare food in the form of carbohydrate by the process called photosynthesis, as we all know here. So carbon dioxide reacts with water by the green plants in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight to produce glucose and produce oxygen. So this is the equation for photosynthesis, where carbon dioxide is being used up. And the last one is it is used in the fire extinguishers. Okay, as carbon dioxide is neither combustible nor a supporter of combustion. So carbon dioxide does not burn, but unlike hydrogen, hydrogen burns, but it does not help other things to burn. It is not a supporter of combustion. It is combustible, hydrogen, but it does not a supporter of combustion. When we talk about oxygen, it is not combustible. Itself will not burn, but it helps other things to burn, means it is a supporter of combustion. But carbon dioxide is neither combustible, means it doesn't burn, nor does it help any other thing to burn. So it is non-combustible and not a supporter of combustion. Hence, carbon dioxide is used as fire extinguishers to put out fires. So being heavier than air, it settles down and forms a blanket over the fire, which cuts the contact between anything which is burning and the oxygen, because without oxygen nothing's going to burn. So therefore oxygen, whenever anything is burning, whenever anything is, like there's a flame here, anything is burning. Now what happens is, something is burning, looks like a lotus over here, but suppose this is the fire. Now we spray the gas from the fire extinguisher. This is carbon dioxide actually. So since it is heavy, it settles down above the fire, and we have atmosphere which has air. So oxygen cannot come in contact. So carbon dioxide cuts the contact between oxygen and the fire. So therefore the fire will stop burning. So carbon dioxide is used as a fire extinguisher. So let us revise the uses of carbon dioxide. It is used in carbonated drinks, cold drinks. It is used as a refrigerant. The dry ice is used as a refrigerant. Why? Because dry ice does not wet the food stuff. So it will directly turn into, it will sublime into gaseous carbon dioxide. So it is used in the manufacture of nitrogenous fertilizer. It is used, it has a very important role in the manufacture of food by the process called photosynthesis by the green plants. And the last one, it is used as a fire extinguisher. Now, in the next class, we will talk about the renewal of carbon dioxide in nature and so on. So, I hope you have understood. So, if you have any questions to ask, you can always call me. So, thank you for watching.